Well, you know, life just don't get any better than this when you wake up at a Motel 6 in Blythe, California with the Coug. Only 200 miles of slogging across the desert to go back to the trucks, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be a long one. It's going to be a big day. Big day.
All right, here we go. Welcome to Ocotillo Wells in the Anza Borrego National Park State Vehicle Recreation Area. It's the end of January. It's officially springtime down here. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel, and it's time for a riding and camping update. One of the sad facts about being an airline pilot is you really have no control over your schedule. Even after 19 years with the company, my vacation time, my schedule, everything is bid based on seniority. And vacation times, you have very little control over. So this year I've got vacation right now in the middle of January. Unfortunately, Jenny took her vacation during the holidays. She was able to spend the holidays with Mom in Spain from the previous video, and I'm unable to join her because I had to work. Now I got my vacation in January. I got my next year's bid. Vacation in March of this year and February of next year. So you got to make the best with what you got, and the best thing to do this time of year is to head south here to Southern California, and the plan is to head further south to Baja, California in the four-wheel camper with the KTM 350 EXC-F bolted onto the back of it. With Jenny back home with the kids back in school, they're unable to join me on this. Hopefully in the March vacation that'll coincide with some of the kids' spring break. So consider this a scouting mission while I bring them back out here, drag them around in March in the four-wheel camper all together. Before we get to the bike and camper setup and talk about some of the riding we've done, the last 3 days, over 500 miles of high-speed desert riding around here. 2 days with a great group of guys from the San Diego Adventure Riders group out of San Diego. We did a 400-mile loop, 2-day loop from here all the way over to Blythe on the Bradshaw Trail route and some additional routes. And then yesterday did a wonderful 100-mile loop through the park here, the Anza Borrego National Park, thanks to some tips from you guys out there. But before I show you around the bike and the camper setup, let me show you what's in bloom right here in the campsite. That just makes the air smell so fragrant all the time down here this time of year. Now, I'm not too familiar with my desert species, but these bushes are in bloom. These cacti up at the top here, they're blooming. And down here on the desert floor, these things are producing lots of fragrant smells. Especially those little white guys. The desert's in bloom. From a distance it looks pretty barren, but look, it's all green across there. Here come the training helicopters. Go blast the heck out of the Chocolate Mountains. Cobras, Marines, 29 Palms, and Yuma. Now the riding down here in the desert is just completely different to anything I'm used to up there in Northern California, where we typically ride in the woods in tight, technical single track. I barely get the 350 out of first or second gear with very low gearing. Down here, it's high-speed desert riding. So let me show you a little bit about how I set the bike up here for the desert. This is the 2013 KTM 350 EXC-F plated dirt bike, and that's important because you can still ride through all these national parks here as long as you have a license plate. Fuel, you need plenty of fuel. That's the huge 5-gallon Cherubies tank, and man, I have burned some gas in this deep sand. I've gotten fuel mileage as low as 25 miles to the gallon, where I'm typically used to fuel mileage more like 60 miles to the gallon. The other changes to the gearing, I typically at home run a 13-48 sprocket combination for super low gearing on the technical trails, and today or now I'm running a 14-tooth counter sprocket. Just bringing up one tooth completely changes the handling or the driving characteristics of the motorcycle. Now you can easily cruise at over 60 miles an hour with this gearing setup. And first gear is not so high that it's uncomfortable in the tight stuff. Another important feature is you'll see, I'll show you on the ride here, the only problems we had on the group ride were guys with gear malfunctions. Tight fitting giant loop gear worked out here. That was the only gear that had 0 failures on our group ride. This is the Mojave bag, and in here has the inner tubes and tools I need to properly change a flat tire out on the trail by myself. And of course a pair of sandals if you get to the river, hot spring, or if you got to do the walk of shame. You'll need a good GPS with your tracks. And I always have the folding rear view mirror, so when you pop out on the highway, you can. And the folding mirror, to be legal on the highways, I like to pop it out of the way when I'm on the trail. About the tires, I'm running the Dunlop D606 dual sport tires, and I'm running them very high pressure because we're bashing rocks at very high speeds out here in the desert. So far, 0 flats. Great traction out here in the sand. Of course, I like these pivot pegs for these long rides. Suspension setup, absolutely stock with the stock clickers. These KTM bikes are just fantastic on this higher speed riding, as well as the slow speed technical stuff. On your Ogeo vest or some kind of a backpack vest, you're going to need to bring plenty of water out here in the desert. And extra water too, in case you break down. That's when you're really going to start drinking the waters, changing tires in the sun. You're not going to find any shade. And of course, some kind of an inReach or some kind of a personal locator beacon in case there's trouble. And always file a flight plan with your friends at home or some local guys that know where you're going, and keep them posted. Share with them your tracks on your locator so they can keep track of you as well. Well, where's my hat? Damn it. I can't do a bit without my hat. Here it is. B for Brownie, Blanco Lirio. So one of the biggest differences of riding out here in the desert is, of course, the sand, and that is kind of can be a fairly new experience for a lot of folks that are coming from Northern California. Some of the tricks with riding in the sand. First, if you can get some official training and ride in a sand pit with some guidance, that'll just take all your fears away. And they'll teach you the basic idea is you hit that sand straight ahead. On some of this hardpan, you can be going 70 miles an hour and drop into a sand pit. You'll immediately drop down to about 50 miles an hour. You want to rear back on the bike just a little bit, shift that weight a little bit aft. Go real light on the handlebars, standing up, always standing up. Let it jiggle around, and then get on the throttle. You might have to drop it down a gear or two. Get the RPM up and the throttle on. Keep the front end light, and the RPM on, and it'll just float through that sand. It's like being on a float plane and getting the floats up on the plane. You got to get up on the plane in the sand. Where your trouble starts is when you chop the throttle. If you get startled or something and suddenly chop that throttle in the sand, that weight's going to shift forward on that front wheel, and it's going to start plowing, and things are going to get squirrely in a hurry. When in doubt, gas it out. Just hit that throttle and get that front end light, and she'll go. In these washes, these twisty, fun river washes, it's so much fun to use what I call the right-hand variable vector thrust BRAP throttle on the right there. Just get into these turns by, I like to just bring my weight a little bit forward, standing up again, lean the bike way over, get on that throttle, and use the rear wheel spin to begin to break that rear end loose in the sand, and it'll just beautifully carve right around these corners. Left and right and left and right, it's just like surfing. So loads of fun out here in the desert. But it burns a lot of gas, and it can be fatiguing after a long time, because to get through it briskly, it takes some pretty aggressive riding. And on our group ride, I had to keep up with the guys on the 500s. Everybody down here has 500s, and now you can see why, because of this, the deep sand and the power required. The 350 did fine, but I was flogging this 350 harder than I've ever flogged it before on this ride. And she did great. It did great.
Don't let a bunch of older, often overweight Southern California riders fool you. These guys probably raced desert in their past, and they are fast. I was going as fast as I could to keep up with these guys.
So the weather down here has just been absolutely perfect. Don't need the heater at night. Warm and dry, not too hot. They're expecting some rain maybe this weekend, so got to stay out of the dry washes. Flash flooding around here is a real thing, is a real dangerous situation. The four-wheel pop-up camper is working great. Of course, there's no shower or bathroom in here, so we're still camping. But here, for example, is a place where you can camp for free, and there's showers and bathrooms right over there. To get the bike on the camper, I use the Moto Mule here. Get this out of the way. To get the bike on the back of the camper, I use this Moto Mule. I don't know if they're still available online. There may have been a patent dispute. I'm not sure the current situation of how you can find these things, but it just uses a 4-ton bottle jack to lift the bike up into position, and it's securely mounted onto the back of the trailer. This bolt here helps keep it from rattling around, and the door just clears the Moto Mule. Even with the bike on the Moto Mule, I can lower the bike to the ground and still open the door about that much and get in and out of the camper. So that makes a very comfortable, self-contained dry camping unit. Bring plenty of water. The solo stoves, it's been a burn-off between the two. So far, I'm enjoying the economy of the smaller campfire over the larger solo stove. I might leave this one at home for the whole family to use and just bring the small campfire stove with me while camping. So on the way down here, I stopped by Lake Isabella area, Keysville. There's some great single track right in there. I'll show you a couple of pictures of that first. And then after that, I came on down here to Ocotillo Wells and joined the San Diego Adventure Rider boys.
Lake Isabella in Keysville is located up outside of Bakersfield up the Kern River Canyon and offers some great motorized trail riding and single track riding. Next time I'm going to bring the 300 with the appropriate size fuel tank and gearing, and on the other side of the Kern River is the Paiute Mountains with lots of great single track riding. I even managed to stumble on the old historic Keysville Cemetery right along the Kern River.
Digger pine cone won't fit.
The day was warm, but it froze pretty good at 2,600 feet overnight. So I headed into town in the morning, got a nice hearty breakfast at the local diner, and then headed out for another lap. The furnace in the four-wheel camper makes these cold nights real cozy. And this decomposed granite on these trails with a little bit of moisture is like riding on Velcro. Great traction. Soon it was time to pack up and head south for the long 5-hour drive through the Mojave Desert to hook up with the San Diego boys for the big weekend ride.
Welcome to Ocotillo Wells, SRVA. What's that mean? State Recreation Vehicle Place? Let's go see if we can find the rest of our crew and go for a ride, a 2-day ride from here to sunny Blythe, California on the Arizona border and back through the Chocolate Mountains. Got a good group of local San Diego Adventure Rider boys gonna show me the ropes around here. I'm already hot. It's January, it's the end of January. It's perfect camping weather down here. Let's go ride.
Through the modern day miracle of the internet, I met Ken Kugel, the guy on the left here, for some adventure riding years ago up in the state of Nevada, and he hooked me up with this big group ride this weekend as I was passing through the area at the same time. Jim, a retired mechanical engineer, did all the route planning for us, as everybody else still has day jobs. Mostly all KTM 500s and a wide variety of riding gear.
8 miles into a 200-mile day, and we're already got to stop for a pee break, boys.
That's what when you get to ride with the old guys, but they move through this desert. That was Butte Wash back there, and coming up next is San Felipe Wash in the Anza Borrego National Park, where you can ride if you have a plated bike on the designated routes. Borrego Springs right back over there.
So this time I didn't want to bore everybody with a bunch of GoPro trail video. Instead, just give you little clips and snippets from the trail. Let me tell you, the desert is in bloom. But these guys barely stop to smell the roses.
Just came through Tule Wash on the way to the highway there next to the... We're coming out of Salton City, ain't we? Kind of near there? Next to the Salton Sea. Very cool wash. A lot of berms to rail. Anza Borrego. Palm Wash. Lots of washes out here. One after another. Can't keep track of them all. Great railing out here. Salton Sea.
We'll talk more about the Salton Sea history in a minute. Back in the Anza Borrego Badlands was this neat arch.
The Squeeze Arch, just off the Salton Sea here in the Anza Borrego. The northeast corner of the Anza Borrego National Park. Coog doing what he does best over there. Lots of fun sandy washes. Good thing we geared this thing up. So Ken here's corrected me. We're in the Truck Haven area of Ocotillo Wells.
Off-road park.
So do the two parks kind of back up to each other? Okay, that's huge.
And Anza Borrego State Park also butts up to it.
Right.
Anza Borrego,
Ocotillo Wells and Truck Haven. Well, Truck Haven is part of Ocotillo Wells.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anza Borrego is for street legal vehicles only.
Right. So here we can see some dirt bikes legally riding around here. And that's where this arch is. And the highway's just right over there, so I'm told.
Next stop after a bit of slab is Mecca for a bit of gas.
There they are, Mecca. Welcome to Mecca. Looks like an Arco station to me.
Then hop over to the east side of the Salton Sea to find the Bradshaw Trailhead.
Bradshaw Trailhead, right, Coog?
Right.
About 80 miles to Blythe?
Yeah,
more?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, give or take.
Old
It actually pops out of Palo Verde, which is a real small town. It's only like a gas station now.
Yeah.
And then the Colorado River is like a mile or two beyond that,
Okay.
to the east.
An old historic trail. We'll get
Yeah.
the details on that later.
Yeah.
But right down here is, what are we looking at, an old resort or something down here?
We're going to the
Oasis, that's right. On the shore of the Salton Sea.
and the Bat Caves. We're going to the
Bat Caves, all right. The Oasis, shores of the Salton Sea. Let's see what this is all about. Pretty good sandy conditions getting in here. Woo.
Right behind these trees is a real interesting oasis.
Miles and miles of desert out there. And then all of a sudden this. Water. Look at that. Huh. You see this on occasion in the Death Valley area also.
This is apparently one of several oases around the Salton Sea area, and I don't know much about them other than they must have been absolute lifesavers for any pioneers passing through the area, especially since the Salton Sea was only formed in 1905 and is really too salty to drink.
Water.
How many lives were saved by coming upon this? It's just making it to the fish. Yeah, pup fish.
Pup fish? Are they the highly endangered?
Actually, no, I don't think they are, but they only live in these little ponds out in the desert. They can stand like 100-degree water.
Huh. Then they built these little ditches to connect the pools. The pupfish are swimming in this tiny little ditch. Tamarisk pine, or salt pine. Apparently the railroad brought them in. They're a non-native species, grows anywhere out here in the desert where there's a little bit of water. You see them in campgrounds out here frequently, but non-native species. Tamarisk pine. Try to get rid of them, but you can't. And I guess the reason the railroads brought them over was to create a windbreak so that you can give your roadbed a break from the incessant winds knocking your roadbed down. Here's where it comes pumping up out of the ground. It's not pumping, it's just flowing out of the ground. You can see the pupfish down in there. Huh. So Coog, you ain't been here before, huh?
Never been here.
But you Bradshaw Trail, you used to ride that back before it was even popular.
Yes.
XR400?
XR400 with camping gear in the back.
No
giant loop. Giant loops weren't invented back then. Or maybe just invented.
I don't think you even adapted. We'll go do a little review of your of your rig there.
I don't think Giant Loop designed the stagecoaches, did they?
That's right.
Back in the day.
Yeah. So the California State Conservancy, who owns this now, or who's taking care of it, managing, watching over it. As you can see, we're walking in, we're not riding in.
You'll be on there and all of a sudden you'll hear a big boom,
Yeah.
but you won't hear a plane for a long time.
Ah, so that's the Chocolate Mountain bombing range used by Yuma and the other folks who's the Marines down here.
Everybody,
Yeah. And so we're gonna go ride right through there, Coog?
to the side of it. We're not going through it.
Oh, you're not going to take us in the bombing range. Also, this was an adventure.
We'll pass on that.
Not far from this oasis is Glamis Resort North, our lunch stop, right near the shoe tree.
The shoe tree, Glamis Resort, should be right up over here. Lunchtime.
That smells good. That's
I smell burgers, Glamis North and Hot Springs. Check it out. The boys are hungry. So we got 94 miles in before lunch. There's a big old hot spring pool right over there, and loads of parking and camping for big time RVers and ATV folks.
Got the wagons.
Yeah, and the Chocolate Mountains are right behind.
A big hearty lunch of half-pound burgers for the boys before hitting the dusty Bradshaw Trail.
The old railroad's still up there. 100 miles of whooped out sand. The Bradshaw Trail. Salton Sea back over there. Shaking somebody's bag apart. Waiting on. See if we can get to Blythe before sunset. I don't know. Long way to go and a short time to get there.
The Salton Sea, made by mistake in 1905, is now the biggest lake in California and only about 40 feet deep. That's not my camper.
80 miles to go that way. 137 miles down.
Then we came upon the Ark.
So one of the biggest attractions out here, about 40 miles west of Blythe, California, is the boat. It appears to be some kind of an old boat mold right here located on the Bradshaw Trail. See? What do we got here? What do you see?
It's a beautiful boat mold. And it has art. It's beautiful art.
Art? There's artwork on? Oh yeah, look at that.
I'm not exactly sure what this art might be.
Profanity. These four-wheelers are everywhere out here nowadays. Here comes the rest of our gang now. Off-road folks got money out here.
Southern California is virtually the birthplace of off-road recreation, four-wheel and two-wheel motocross and all that. And the sport is bigger than ever, even today.
So our riding partner, Coog, mild-mannered guy from Wisconsin, but he's famous.
He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. That is Coog's 1978 high school picture, complete with the horn rim glasses. He's all over Baja, Southern California, Nevada, the greater Southwest. There he is back there in the red helmet. So Coog, is that your high school picture over there on the boat?
Yes, it is.
The famous Coog sticker.
Coog sticker, yeah.
All right. I got a fresh load of them too.
There you go.
Back in the bottomlands of Blythe. Fortunately, Wayne here had a little bit of extra fuel. The professional pilot in the crew here managed to damn near run the biggest tank in the whole fleet out of gas today. Not taking into account the headwinds and the deep sand out here and keeping up with these boys from the San Diego Adventure Riders. You're going to feed us a heavy throttle hand. All right, beer 30, boys.
That's a good day when you run out of gas. That means you put in some miles.
That's right. 190. So I guess I wasn't the only one that needed some additional fuel here at the very last. 16 miles, Blythe, right up the Colorado River. Farm country out here. Another rosy sunset there, Coog.
And it is.
Are we gonna make it in before dark?
It's probably gonna be cutting it close now. Let's see. It's sunset at 5:03. It's 4:45.
Oh yeah, 16 miles in 15 minutes. No sleeping in the desert tonight for these boys. They only choose the finest accommodations. Now the adventure begins. Motel 6, Blythe.
We were able to chain all the bikes together, lock them up, and then eat, drink, belch, fart, sleep, rinse, repeat, and do it all over again the next day.
Well, you know, life just don't get any better than this when you wake up at a Motel 6 in Blythe, California with the Coog. Only 200 miles of slogging across the desert to go back to the trucks, huh?
Yeah, it's gonna be a long one. It's gonna be a big day. Big day.
All right, here we go. Wayne, you're from New Zealand, right?
New Zealand.
From a town where you said about the same latitude as Oregon?
I'm from the town where all the Lord of the Rings movies was filmed.
Oh, really?
It's called Matamata. Now it's called Hobbiton.
Oh, really? And what brings you out here?
Well,
Work?
I've been here for 20 years because I got on a fishing boat in New Zealand and ended up in San Diego. So,
Really?
and I
No way to get home, not enough money to get back?
went to the local bar and had a good time and never got around to
See,
leaving.
that's what happens. You come to these towns and you stop
Exactly.
for a drink, and you 20 years later, and here you are, right?
What else? Kansas City Barbecue, where they filmed the Top Gun movies in San Diego.
Oh yeah.
They got me hooked.
And today you're on the WR250.
That's right.
Excellent.
Trusty old workhorse, huh?
Yep, good machine. Wayne and I have the two smaller bikes, but everybody else has the KTM 500.
Now let's go to the Colorado River on the Arizona side.
Colorado River, welcome to Arizona. California is just a few hundred yards over there. We'll go south
along the Colorado down to Palo Verde and then cut west across back to the Bradshaw Trail. Just in case we don't make it, we'll have something here to pick our bones. Whole lot of water. Heading to Southern California. Not much left for Baja. You see all that silt in the bottom of the Colorado River? Well, back at the turn of the last century, the California Development Company had silt problems with their irrigation canals that they were developing for the Imperial Valley. So they figured they'd make another cut into the bank of the Colorado River to increase the water flow into their canals. Well, that was also happened to be an El Nino type rain year, and the high water flow soon overwhelmed these banks, changing the course of the entire Colorado River back to the north and flooding the Salton Sea Basin some 200 feet below sea level. This flooding created this waterfall. It went on for nearly 2 years, creating the Salton Sea, wiped out a good portion of the Southern Pacific Railroad, bankrupted the California Development Company, and only after Herculean efforts were made over a 2-year period was the Colorado River finally got back under control and moved in the correct direction towards the Sea of Cortez in Baja, Mexico. Now let's meet another interesting member of the group, Dan, who for the last 19 years has been a Major League Baseball talent scout. Let me finish my donut here. This is Dan. You made the successful transition from Harleys to dirt bikes recently, right?
That's true. That's a fact, and I'm having more fun on the dual sports.
See? A lot more fun than the slab, huh?
Yep. Safer, too.
Now, Dan, would you care to share with us again that story about how these things
not.
Come on,
The
load that
recluse?
thing up.
The
No, the loading it up in the back of the truck.
No.
You should have heard that story. It was a good one. Fortunately, nobody had a video camera on that.
Right.
But the bike is fine. There are entire YouTube video channels devoted to guys dropping their bikes, trying to load them up into the back of their truck, and had Dan's story been videotaped, it would have taken top place. Now time for some more gear failures. Somebody needs to take a trip to Giant Loop here. We saw a bunch of stuff back there.
Well, that bag ripped. You need more help than that bag. The bag is no good. The bag is ripped.
That's the Coug, master of the obvious there. It's somewhere right back down here. We thought it was somebody's homeless camp, but it's Brian's stuff. Giant Loop gear. Keep it tight. The only way to fly. So you have two choices out here, deep sand or whooped out trails. Sure is scenic though. Just goes on and on and on. Salton Sea that way. This is the deep sand that'll keep you working hard. Stop for lunch and gas at Scirocco Summit and the General Patton Museum, where General Patton ran his tanks all around this desert parts here in preparation for World War II. A scenic run down the recently washed out Box Canyon Road. It was washed out in a flash flood just last October. A couple more gear failures from these bouncy trails. Even the Moscow's bag clips had a problem. Not the only issue we've had on this trip is gear failures. Another rack failed, and so now you got to bungee all this onto yours. Hope your rack holds it.
It's all on way to the seat.
Yeah. Did you drain the fuel out of there already? Oh, good. Too much stuff. Well, on any Sunday in Ocotillo Wells, just like the movie Fast Forward 50 Years,
This place is just packed with folks on four-wheel machines and razors and dust and
Buggies.
buggies. Look out. Hang on, man. But as for now, Ocotillo Wells is still open. This little section here is open riding. It's free admission.
Right.
But they're naming the trails. They're grading the trails. They're not even trails. They're roads now. And
who knows what's the future's going to hold.
right. So get out here and ride this while you can. See you here. Thanks, Coog.
Thanks, Juan.
Yep.
Home in time for supper with 0 flats, 0 crashes, and 8 new friends. I'll show you that solo loop later. I gotta keep moving. We'll see you here.